For Women's History Month, we are inviting some influential women across the Inland Northwest to come in and chat with all of us. Today, we have Sarah Dixit with us. So, Sarah, I'll let you introduce yourself. Who are you to the Spokane community?
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I'm Sarah. I'm the newest council member on Spokane City Council. So I represent District 1, which is Northeast Spokane, and also downtown. Yeah, it's interesting to be here and be called like an influential woman of Spokane. Yeah.
But you are, because, you now have power over some of our, ordinances and what the future of Spokane looks like. What does that feel like to kind of know that you have that influence and are that important to our community?
It's an interesting transition for sure. So I'm only 2.5 months in this job, and it is a weird thing to like think about how this is how government is run, where it's like you kind of just get thrown into this thing. You have to learn a lot in a short amount of time. I think it's an interesting thing being in city council and in these forms of government because it feels like there's a train that's been going on and you just have to like jump on it. So there's some things that have had a lot of context, like different ordinances people had been working on from the fall, but we're voting on it now. So trying to like catch up, like what has the feedback been from community? What has this process look like? So it's not like every year is a restart. So it's been fun, but I've been very grateful to folks in City Hall and my peers for being willing to teach me, and all of them have been in my spot before, so it feels very community-oriented, and so I feel grateful for them.
Where did your passion for local government come from?
Yeah, so I moved to Spokane to attend Whitworth University, and I was a college student during the time when I think a lot of people got pretty involved in politics. So it was during the 2016 election. I think for everyone, it was a time where the political became very personal and it was very present in a lot of our lives, especially on a college campus like Whitworth. So for me, it was in that time where I'm learning about all these things, getting my degree around different people from different places, and just having to talk about all these issues that I had never necessarily talked about before. So it was in that time where I learned a lot about how government is run, and knowing the federal government is a big piece for a lot of people, but also knowing there's a lot of things that we can change here locally and in the state. So I started organizing with some friends, got a Planned Parenthood club on campus to kind of show the diversity of thought that existed on campus. And it was through that involvement that I became involved with our local Planned Parenthood. So when I graduated, they offered me a job to be their community organizer. So I got to do all that organizing that I was doing on campus, but now in a larger sense. So in the Spokane area, and also statewide. So I think that's where I really learned that the local does have a lot of impact. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily know that when the news keeps telling you like the Supreme Court and the federal government.
No, it's really easy to fall into the idea of no matter where you fall on the political spectrum of, things are just happening to us, not for us or around us or because of us. How would you kind of conflate to people how important me and what I do is to something as grand scale as a national political issue?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question because a lot of people have asked me, I think based on the different work I've done, if I want to move to a larger city like Seattle or Portland. And I actually really love living here and doing the work here because in Spokane, it's kind of this like big town, small city vibe where you can 100% run into the mayor at a coffee shop. Or
I literally ran into the mayor last weekend.
Exactly. Yeah.
First Friday.
Exactly. So I think that is a really magical part of our city where the folks who are making these decisions are not removed from community or live in these like weird areas that no one goes to. They're like very deeply entrenched in the community. So I really like the ability for people to be able to see who their electeds are, being able to just talk with us and being able to let us know like, hey, we've had this really dangerous intersection in our neighborhood for a long time and nothing is being done. Like, can you provide some information about that? Like that is such a little thing that someone can come up and ask us about that I think is pretty unique for a small city like Spokane.
Totally.
Yeah.
And, obviously I framed this Women's History Month, being a woman in a political position. I feel like kind of the further up you go in political power, the less likely it is that it's a woman representing a community. Can you just speak to why you think that is and how we can overcome that?
Yeah, I think the why it is has been, centuries of patriarchy and just like women being underestimated. So I think for us, it's really important to see that, for our council, the majority are women. Mm-hmm. And so that's really cool. And I, would be interested to see for the historians out there. Like, I think this would probably be the first time that has happened, or something like that. So I think it's a really encouraging trend where we are seeing more women step up in this way. And I think for me, especially being a young woman, so I'm 29 and I very much am the youngest on council right now. So wanting to show people too that it's not necessarily like you have to enter into this decade of life before you're ready to do this kind of thing. I think it's really about your community connections and how much you're willing to, I think, give to the community and into this job.
Your care, your experience, all of it, right?
Yeah. So like everyone has their lived experience. Everyone has their kind of like community connections and people that they know and trust. And I think it's really important that we learn how, as women, that we have those connections, we have those interpersonal skills, and how those are very much needed in a lot of areas of life, especially in leadership.
Did you have women that you looked up to as a kid or a teenager or even in college when you started into this career path?
Yeah, I would say a lot of my family members were inspirations to me. So my parents immigrated from India around the 1980s, and my mom, being in a new country, her and my dad were arranged, so they didn't necessarily know each other. So it was a pretty isolating experience. But for her to be able to start a career and do the whole like mom and career and family person was really inspiring to me, because it very much was a feminist thing to do, even if she doesn't necessarily see that as her path. And then seeing my sister, she's become a doctor and she's been really influential in, her career as a pediatrician. So I think seeing all these paths that my family members have taken, especially in a culture in which women aren't necessarily like given those opportunities for leadership. But actually, recently I had an experience where I got to tell someone who had been a really big inspiration to me how much they meant to me. Yeah. It was my AP literature teacher from high school. Aww. So she went to Whitworth. And so that's why I applied and ended up really liking it up here. And now somehow time has passed where I've lived here for 12 years. And so her son is now old enough to be doing the college search thing. So he was doing a Whitworth weekend. So I got to meet up with her and just talk about how much, she influenced me as being just like a young woman and being in high school and learning what it was to use my voice and how to be like smart and connected to people. And so it was really cool now being in council, being able to tell her like, I moved here because like you really love this experience, and now like I really have like just run away with it. So it was
that had to have meant so much to her.
I think so. And it was very sweet because I think it was a nice thing. I think something we don't get to do a lot is tell the people who meant a lot to us that they meant a lot to us. And like are such influential people. I think especially for teachers, because they're influencing so many people all the time, you don't necessarily know where that seed is going to plant and then grow. So it was very special for me to be able to communicate that, because I think a lot of people don't receive their flowers or recognition until later in life, after a lot of time has passed. So yeah, it meant a lot to me, and I think a lot to her too.
Yeah, I had a teacher in 7th grade in like our little media class tell me, hey, have you ever thought about being a reporter? You're kind of good at this camera thing. And then obviously here I am, right? And so my brother's a little bit younger than me and was graduating, maybe not graduating high school, but in high school at some point. And that teacher was there, and I was able to go up to him and be like, hey, I did it. Like, I am a reporter. I'm doing the thing that you said I was going to be good at. And it was similar, like just a good way to bring it full circle and back around. But you're now in a position where a young girl can look up to you. How do you kind of go about your day-to-day knowing that you could be that for somebody?
Yeah, it's a weird feeling. I use the word weird because it's like both good and like
totally
scary, but also I think something where I think it's a reminder for everyone that there's always people looking up to you in community. So I feel like for you too, you being a young woman reporter. Yeah, exactly.
You're right. Weird feeling.
Yeah, it is weird. So I think it's really just trying to be someone that like I wish I had, or someone who, like being like that teacher, being like just someone else that can mentor young people. So I think never wanting to tell people they're too young to do something, always wanting to encourage them to do, like, say yes to opportunities, allowing folks to shadow me if they want to. I think it's really about access and just being around people and making those connections. So I think for me, it's been important to just make sure I'm still me and not, being someone who's now like, oh, I'm too busy to be in community now. So continuing to do like going to concerts and sitting in coffee shops and walking around Riverfront Park and doing all those things still, because I think it's important to show people that, yes, your electeds are in these weird positions of power, but they're also your neighbors and people who are living their lives in Spokane just like you. So for me, it's really important for young people to see that it doesn't have to change who you are, and you bringing your full self and you bringing your personality is really what makes that change and that culture change in positions like mine. So that has been really important to me, and hopefully it's working.
Yeah. No, I do genuinely feel like as a broader community, not just Spokane, but as a country, we have been trending in the direction of opportunities and connections like that are not just for people who look a certain way, have grown up a certain way, or sound a certain way. And so it is just amazing to see like the floodgates open on that, right? Because I'm sure the people that you're mentoring and connecting with are very different than what a couple of decades ago that looked like. So
totally.
It's optimistic, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it is. And I think also with the state of the world, the access that all of us have to all this information all the time, there's definitely like compassion fatigue and just like news fatigue that people are experiencing. And so it's really important to show people there are places where you can make change, and it can be really tangible change, even if it feels small. It does give people that sense of agency that I think when a lot of things are happening federally or globally that feel out of our control, it allows us to know that our community is still something we can shape and something that we can make, that we can be proud of. So I think it allows for some of that helplessness to hopefully be overcome, so that it creates more of that community feeling and more of that connection to one another.
I mean, in the same way that your passion started small with an AP literature teacher and now is this big thing that's affecting a community, that's what any policy has been, right? It started small and ended up spreading. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you very much for being here and chatting. Is there anything else that you wanted to add, or that's weighing on you that you want the people to know?
I just think, if you're someone who feels like, local government can't do anything, I'd really recommend that you take a walk around your neighborhood and look at all the things that you love or things that you would want to change. And I think realize that those are things that your local government and your local city can have an impact on. So encouraging people to get involved in whatever way that makes sense. It doesn't have to be sitting at city council meetings with us for a couple of hours on a Monday and hopefully now a Wednesday. It can be long, yeah. So it can be sending an email, picking up the phone, messaging us on social media, whatever feels comfortable. But I think knowing that any active connection can mean a lot. And so wanting people to know their voice does matter.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah,
it was nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.